Hello, this video is going to go through an exercise that will seek to improve the strength and capacity of the middle and lower fibres of the trapezius muscle. Now that's so called because the trapezius muscle is a trapezoid shape and the upper trapezius attaches right up into the neck, comes out to the shoulders and then down to the lower spine. And the middle and lower fibres of trapezius are often quite dysfunctional. They work in opposition to the powerful shoulder elevators and protractors and forward tilters of the shoulder, and therefore the ones down the back which pull and depress and control the position of the shoulder blade can become very overly dominated and therefore become weak or dysfunctional or deconditioned, however you want to phrase that. So this technique will show you how you can really try and target that grouping. It's a kind of natural accompaniment to the Pilates Breaststroke Prep. So I think if you haven't gone through that technique, it's well worth having a look at the introductory levels of the Breaststroke Prep. The link's in the description below, and that will make this follow-up exercise much more meaningful, much more relevant, and I won't have to go into so much detail about the technicalities involved. Because it is that natural progressor or partner to the Breaststroke Prep, this exercise is performed lying on your front. So usual considerations when you're on your front. The number one consideration is that the low back cannot be compromised if you have any problems there. Cushions underneath your navel may be helpful. That's all discussed in the accompanying video. The head is resting down. You don't want to be perched on your chin. That's really not a good look for the neck. And so again, you might need head cushioning or head height adjustment there. And you want a neutral lumbar-pelvic alignment, so the navel is just drawn up away from the floor slightly and the arms start off resting by your side. So I'm going to use the level 3 of the breaststroke preparation. And just to show you what that is, the shoulder blades float up and glide down towards the toes, so it's a combination of retraction and depression. The hands float up to hip height, and then the upper spine lifts, bringing the head off the floor, but critically without sandwiching the stomach into the floor and without lordosing or arching the lumbar spine. So there's the start position. If you find that it's uncomfortable for you in the neck, you can keep the head on the floor, which is essentially the level 2 position, but it doesn't really make a great deal of difference as to whether the head is up or down for this one. Now, because the shoulders are already retracted and depressed, they're being glided down towards the tailbone, the lower fibres of trapezius are doing a good job here. They're tugging that inferior angle of the shoulder blade down towards the base of the spine, and they're nicely activated at this point. From here, keeping the neutral lumbar-pelvic position, keeping the body nice and still, begin to wing the arms out to the side, and as you do that, the hands will naturally turn so that by the time you're out to the side, the palms will be facing the floor. And that's the start position I go to and then bring it back. Now what you want to try and think about as you're performing that arc movement with the arms is to keep the downward pull towards the base of your spine going with your shoulder depressors, chiefly the lower fibres of trapezius. So that way you're going to really prime them to try and hang on as much as possible as that shoulder blade begins to medially rotate and allow the arm to come up. But in some ways you're actually trying to pull back against that motion to really incentivize the lower traps to keep a hold while you're changing the orientation. So to start with, you're in your breaststroke prep position, neutral spine of course, navel engaged, and then you're coming round, keeping the hands the same height, but you're really trying to keep those shoulder blades pulled back. And there's a nice first position. Once you go higher than that 90-degree angle out of your body, it's going to become, I don't think there's a linear progression in terms of the difficulty. It will become markedly more difficult, markedly more quickly. And so you might find that the increments you can go to beyond that are much smaller than that first range. So don't be surprised if that happens. But if you were doing that, you've got your setup position, you've come round, you're trying to keep those shoulder blades pulled all the way down towards your tailbone, even when you go up. Now, I'm feeling like I'm at a bit of a limiting point there, and that's, I think, exclusively because I'm so focused on maintaining that inferior glide of the shoulder blades. If I don't think about that at all and simply just come up into a dorsal raise, I can bring my hands to touch without really any problem at all. But there's not a great deal of action being done by the target muscle group. Whereas when I'm counteracting, keeping those shoulders depressed, I'm really asking them to hang on as much as possible, and then they're getting a really good workout just there. So although it might not be a fully what's described as a functional movement because you're not allowing that full shoulder elevation, that's not the point of this exercise. You're aiming to really keep those lower fibres of the trapezius switched on and pulling as hard as they can to get them into the habit of giving a bit of resistance to the things which normally just keep them quiet. Now, with regards to the middle fibres of trapezius, as soon as you come away from the body with the arms, the middle fibres of trapezius are keeping the shoulder blade pulled back and in. They're stopping it dropping and flopping. So the very fact that you're clearing the floor as you go up into this midline arc, that's when you get access to that, and they work in conjunction with the lower traps to really get that specific targeting we're after here. As discussed in the Breaststroke Prep video accompanying this, it's really important that everything else is working fine, so I won't go into too much depth here. Just make sure that you're not pushing to failure, you're not pushing to fatigue in these muscles, that you're not causing any pain. You're just really focusing on where those muscles attach to the shoulder blade and to the spine, and really getting them doing what they're meant to, which is that depression and hanging on to the shoulder blade as you move away from it.